starting off up here, there's three big things you need to know before we begin. In Corel, red hairline means vector cut. Blue hairline is vector engrave, and any non-hairline mark, no matter what color it is, black, white, green, whatever, is going to raster. The difference between vectoring and rastering on this is vector follows a very specific path. It's like taking a pen, putting it on a piece of paper, and moving it around. That's what the laser is going to do. It's going to follow that specific path. Rastering, the laser is going to sweep back and forth, pulsing, throwing down pulses of the laser at different intensities in order to basically build up an image. It's more like the way a dot matrix printer would work. It's laying down tiny dots of, instead of color or black and white grayscale, it's a pulse of the laser. And it sweeps back and forth. It's not trying to cut through anything. It's just trying to mark on the surface. And you'll see an example of both of those once we get cutting. Vector engraving, it's just going to mark into the surface of it, but it's going to follow a very specific, neat pathway. Vector cutting, it's going to follow that very specific, neat pathway, but it's also going to try to cut through the material. And that's, again, where it's important to know the depth of what you're actually, or the depth of the thickness of the material you're cutting. So, those are the three very important parts to the way you're going to design something. So, running a job. The first thing you're going to do is open Corel. We made the settings in Corel so that automatically when you open up Corel, it's going to open up and you're engraving your document size in Corel. When I click new document, your document size in Corel automatically matches your laser. It's 24 inches wide by 12 inches depth. In order to, and this is where you guys will practice and learn more about Corel on your own, but I'm going to quick do a sample one. In order to do text, you can click on the text tool, click in the open space, type whatever you guys want. What is it? What's your name?
OAI.
OAI. And you can right click and go to text properties and make all sorts of changes to that. I don't tend to change the size with this, but you can change the type of character, etc.
So if it's solid printing, that will be etched.
This is
If
going
it's
to
outline of the letters, it would be cut, right?
correct.
Okay.
So in a way, so right now this is solid black. If it's all just filled in, it's going to raster and just fill that in with a raster. With rastering, the way it's going to do it. Now I can select that text, and I can go to text properties, and I can go to. So this is the fill.
I guess you want.
What's that?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. I can go to outline, hairline, and red, and then it would try to cut out those letters.
Okay.
I could go to hairline blue, and it's going to also, besides raster and filling it in, if you look closely, there is a blue hairline right there. It's going to vector engrave around those letters as well, which actually really does make a neat image on certain materials. Because you get your raster fill and a nice, clean, little crisp outline. But it's not going to try to cut it out. It's just going to make a nice, clean, crisp. I call it, it's an outline, but it's vector engraving. Or I could also get rid or go to no fill, and then you can actually see what's going on there. And if I changed it to red, what's it going to do? Cut out those letters. Exactly. But it's got to be hairline here. If it's not hairline, it's going to raster. So from there, I'm going to change this actually back to uniform fill, and I'm going to go to no outline. And then do we have, and then to size this, a lot of times I usually just go like this. You know, some other tricks in Corel, Control D actually duplicates it. So if you want to do the same thing over and over next to each other, I'm just gonna undo all those though. And so from there, the settings also automatically default to, if you're going to do an image or a shape, it's automatically going to go hairline red. That's the way we set it up.
Good.
Now, you can change that. Let's say I don't want to actually cut that out. So I can right click again and go to my object properties and change that to blue. And now it's just going to make a nice little clean box around it, but it's going to engrave it. It's not going to try to cut out anything. Can we use this black plastic?
Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
All right, or green plastic. So on here,
And I just put that tape on there to hold the pieces, which didn't work well, so if you
oh,
need to
okay.
take that off.
Oh, no problem. I'm just going to use the top corner anyway. So another thing in Corel that I do is a lot of times I'll set guidelines. So guidelines, I know that I want to make this approximately, let's call it 3 by 2.5. So, which I didn't measure the width yet anyway. So, guidelines, basically you pick on the ruler and just drag it out. So pick and drag. So 3 inches out and it just drops it. It's just a guideline. It's not going to actually do anything. All those dashed lines are doing are they're there for you to visually see, you know, where is everything on your document. So 3 by about 2.5. And I know that's the area that I'm going to be engraving on. So now I can kind of size in there. And actually, if you want to, you can actually pick, use the arrow button
And drag up.
to pick and actually move everything all together.
Okay.
So there's a lot of little tricks like that in Corel that, again, I'm not an expert in Corel, but I know some of the basics that will help you as you're designing. The other thing you can do is, I do want to move this separately now. I want to actually, half of 3 is 1.5, half of 2.5 is 1 1/4. Wait.
Yeah,
1 1/4,
1.25.
right?
Yeah.
So I want to center that in my 3 by 2. You can actually up here enter exact numbers for a location. So I want the center of that box to be 1.5, and I want it to be, actually I want that box to be a little smaller. And I want it to be negative, and it's got to be negative because you're going down in the Cartesian plane. Negative 1.25, and now that's exactly centered. I can do the same thing with my text if I can get that text. I didn't want to do that. Sometimes you have a hard time picking when it's overlapped like that, picking the exact. There we go. Okay, so I want that centered on 1.5 and negative 1.25. So now both of those things are centered. Again, if I wanted to move them together, now I can select all of them, and any movements I make will move all of it together. So the last thing I want to do is actually ellipse. See if I can pull this off. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. Well, I can do that. It'll just cut off the marks, but it doesn't matter because I will do that just to show you how it works. I'll go again 1.5 by negative 1.25. It's already there. Okay. So what is it going to do there? It's going to raster the letters. It's going to engrave this blue line vector following a specific path, and then it's going to cut out
Okay.
that circle. I don't know for sure which order I think it always rasters first, then vector engraves, then vector cuts is I think the order. So I'm ready to send it to, and I'm going to say print, and I'll probably refer this to this as a printer once in a while, because it really functions just like a printer would function. So up on here, I did my Corel. I showed you guys a few of these Corel tips: guidelines, object properties, text properties, duplicate, setting it to a specific location. We'll go back through that again later for more practice. Running a job. I'm done with my Corel. My file's ready to go. Print, select your 3.60. So go File, Print. Make sure up here your printer is your VLS 3.60. Once you have that, you go to Properties, which is, oh, and you know what? I said Properties. I need to rewrite that. That's actually Preferences. We'll rewrite that later. So click on Preferences, and automatically this is going to take us into the UCP, Universal Control Panel. And it allows us to enter the information that we have about what we're engraving on and what we want the engraver to do. Generally is mostly what we're engraving on. So we select the material, enter the thickness, etc. So our material, this is plastic, and it is acrylic, and I believe it is probably cast. No, it's actually probably extruded acrylic, you
I
think?
don't know. I don't remember.
And realistically, most of these things don't make a huge difference.
Okay.
As long as you're in the right category, it's good. But cast
okay.
acrylic, I think, is going to be harder than extruded acrylic. So it tends to up the values, the power values. If you're trying to cut through something that's cast acrylic, I think it's harder than extruded acrylic. And I actually think this is extruded acrylic. So we select that. Then we enter our thickness. Here, again, is where your digital caliper will come in handy. Thickness, 0.108. And up in this right-hand corner, you can make all sorts of adjustments. So let's say we try to do this one time, and it doesn't cut all the way through. Darn it, our settings must be off, or maybe we're not correct on what the material actually is. So the next time we run it, we're going to go to vector cutting, and we're going to increase it by 10% to make sure that it cuts all the way through. So you have manual adjustments, intensity adjustments right here. Or let's say you engrave on something, you raster engrave on it, and it doesn't turn out quite as dark as you want it to turn out, or it's too dark. You can make these adjustments the next time you run that. And same thing with vector engraving. So maybe next time you want it a little bit deeper, just increase the percentage some. You also have the full manual controls where you select exactly what the color that you're engraving, what it's going to do, the power, the speed, the pulses per inch. You can do all of that manually if you'd like to as well. For advanced users, it might be something they want to play with eventually. There's more information in the user guide that's on the disc about how to use manual controls for those people who would like to get into that. So, materials database, go back to that tab, and I am going to hit, after I select that, I hit apply, OK. Notice here too, it says fixture type none, and remember, you don't have to change anything for that fixture. The only one you're going to change here is when we put in the rotary.
Okay.
Ignore pin table, you don't have one, and ignore custom. But right now, you don't have to make any changes. Hit apply, hit OK. It's going to take you back to this screen. Again, I don't know for sure if you need to hit apply, but I always do. Apply, OK. Now, once you're there, you're going, uh-oh, nothing happened. You do have to hit this. That's why I dragged down this little icon. You do open that UCP. Once in a while, if you try to open it and it's not popping up, try minimizing what you're working on. Sometimes it's hidden behind it, just as a little tip there. So we see what we have. There we go. That's our UCP. That's our file. We're ready to go. First thing I'm going to do is turn on the laser, activate the laser.